Hi, this is Nicole Van Esselston, and I'm with.
Winter Sutton.
And today, or tonight really, we are going to be discussing Is Bilingualism a Superpower by Storied from their series Other Words. Winter, do you want to start us off with a little description of the video, just like a quick intro?
So they kind of spend the video talking about how kids with bilingualism are, not to be mean, but different than other kids.
What do you mean by not to be mean? Do you have something to say? Are you trying to be mean and just like shrugging it off as like, oh, well, not to be mean, but like you suck? What? Okay, no. I'm taking this. The video talks about like how bilingualism like kind of helps development, or it kind of like pushes it forward. We visit Maria Arredondo, or Dr. Maria Arredondo from University of Texas, who like studies developmental psychology and everything with kids, and they go into like all these different kinds of like how kids learn language, like they're simultaneous, sequential, all that. And it also talks about like code switching for the kids, like going between like English to Spanish, and it also talks about like rhythm of speech, and then eventually gets to like a ball is gonna be something else if you say it in like Russian or Spanish. It's gonna have a different name.
I kind of want to go back to code switching. The way that she described it was basically like switching on and off different languages when you're talking to different people. So if I were talking to Nicole in, I'm going to say Russian, I would speak Russian and then I could turn around and immediately go to English. It's a lot more complicated than that, but I could hypothetically do that.
Yeah. Like I say that Winter also speaks Russian. I'm not fluent, but I know a little bit. Also, side note, I'm using a very American accent in this because it is like 1 a.m. when we recorded this, and I did not feel like putting on the accent. But this is supported by what we say later about sequential learning. So there's a fun fact for ya. And now back to the actual podcast. Bye-bye. So like, Привет, how are you? And like she would say, Как dela, how are you? Like we just had a little conversation of like code switching. I want to look into mutual exclusivity a little bit, because that kind of brings us into one of our theories of learning, actually. So like assimilation, like you're taking something that's new to you and you're assimilating to it. You're getting used to it, right? What they talked about with monolinguals, like individuals such as myself or Winter, we would have something called mutual exclusivity.
Okay, mutual exclusivity is essentially, from what I got from it, was that it's like one word means one thing, or one thing has one word. Monolinguals have that, where water bottle means water bottle. I don't know any other language for the word water bottle.
And then for bilinguals, they kind of deal more with audio-visual cues. Yeah, like if their mom is speaking at them, right, and they're speaking in Spanish versus speaking in English, the more that they pay attention to their lips, the more they can see like this mouth shape equals this sound, which goes into this word, which is in this language. It looks into like the different like vowel sounds, of different languages. Another thing with like audiovisual cues, like two labels are given to one thing. They can kind of like correlate it. They can switch between the two labels for the one thing.
And kind of going off the audiovisual first half, like phonetics are really big, especially in kids.
When you're in the womb and your mama is talking to you in Spanish, editor's note, we kind of switched it to French. I forgot how, but we switched it to a French mom. So yeah, you're in your French mother's womb and she's talking to you like, oh, mi bébé, like, and then she switches to English and she's like, oh, I love you so much, je t'aime. You hear those speech sounds that your mom is using in like, even in like fetal development, like your brain is adjusting to those mouth sounds, Yeah, they can differentiate between language patterns, which kind of brings us to code switching again, but that also goes into prosody, which is looking at the different patterns of people's rhythm of speech. Like in English, we have a more stress time language, like, oh, I want to go do this, will you join me? Versus Spanish, it's syllable time, so like a different syllable will be accented by holding it for longer. Like if I were to do syllable timing in English, it would be, I want to go to the store and grab something, will you go with me? And it's also used in grammar.
I learned this in German. It's noun, subject, verb, at least in German. I don't know about English. I don't pay that much attention to how I speak. Different languages use down, up, or up, down, up. in order to accentuate what they're saying and how they're saying it. And on a completely different topic, segue that didn't sound good, perceptual narrowing, where it's, I think they said 16 months or something of that sort.
So it's actually at 6 months. Yeah, no, for monolinguals, it's 18 months, and that's the mutual exclusivity. But for bilingual babies, it's 6 months, and as they're babies, they can hear and they can understand all speech sounds. But like as they grow older, and their parents and like their community and everything speak their native language to the child more, the speech sounds that they can understand are gonna become like more narrowed down to just the speech sounds in our language. Like honestly, in English we don't have that many speech sounds compared to like French and Spanish, and especially German, like East Asian languages also. Like those use a lot of different phonemes than we do, which is just a fancy word for like mouth sounds. So yeah, it just narrows down as they like grow older. And speaking of mouth sounds and everything and like being bilingual, there's 2 different ways that like a kid can be bilingual, you know? Like there's simultaneous and then there's sequential.
So simultaneous is like learning it as a kid at the same time. Your parents are code switching their languages so that you're learning English and Spanish. Living in a bilingual household, that's probably how you'll end up with simultaneous bilingualism. Sequential is starting to learn it maybe in like late elementary school, or, you know, middle high school.
So it both can happen at the same time. These are not exclusive of each other. Just want to put that out there.
Thank you, Nicole.
Also, when someone does like has like sequential learning, typically they have an accent. Actually, no, they will have an accent. No matter what they do, they will have an accent.
Just wanted to use an accent.
No.
Also, you know, obviously, like, yes, language learning can happen at any point in time, but it is significantly easier for a younger child to start learning it than it is for a fully fledged adult. Like, insanely. Segue. Theories of learning. The main theory shown in this video and this research would be constructivism.
Constructivism, we were talking earlier, we were both talking earlier about like sequential learning. Sequential learning uses a lot of like assimilation, like this means that. So that's one fun thing. And then simultaneous uses more adaptations. Like I was talking about earlier, we have the audio visual cues, or just I already know what this is. I just have to add a new word to it. 2 labels are given to one thing.
The entire idea of constructivism is the schema. This means this, or this means this, and this also means this, which, you know, is assimilation and adaptations. So assimilation would be like...
So, like, in English, a girl is a girl. You know, like, we all know what a girl is. We all know what the word girl means. And then in French, we have, you know, a girl is a fille. Like, we don't know what that means, but someone who speaks both English and French would be like, oh, yeah, that's the same thing. Totally. If I were to speak both languages, the same image would pop into my head.
And that would be sequential learning, most likely. It would be assimilation, because it's like, oh, this means this, and means this. So sequential would be assimilation. This means this, and now this means this. Simultaneous would mean adaptation. So like learning 2 things mean one at the same time. However, there is a secondary theory that we realized would work, which is social learning. The social learning theory, which is Bandura.
I can talk about social learning. I do that every day. So, social learning. This is integrated a lot in into a bilingual child's life a lot, because, you know, you're watching your community, you know, speak all this. Like I've learned a lot of words when I was a little kid because my mom is actually Russian and Ukrainian, and there's actually huge Russian and Ukrainian population in the town where I live. So I grew up in a community of, you know, a lot of Russian and Ukrainian speaking people. It's the same language, just 2 different dialects, right? Or at least that's what I understand. So I learned a lot of words growing up that I don't know now because I forgot them because I never had to use them. But I wouldn't have learned those words if I wasn't around my community all the time. If I didn't have to learn how to say these words so that I could play catch or I could play tag in the park with my friends. When it comes to being a bilingual child, learning through your community, learning through your parents, and then you go to school and you learn another language, but then you go back home and you're learning whatever your family's culture is if they're not exactly from the US. So that's social cultural learning, or not social cultural learning, that is social learning. Brief little summary, little too long didn't listen. For anyone who wants to skip to the last 30 seconds of this, bilingual kids, their brains develop a lot. They have more work to do, so they have more brain activity and whatever. Prosody, rhythm of speech, mutual exclusivity for monolinguals, audiovisual cues for bilinguals, constructivism, sequences, assimilation, or sequential learning uses a lot of assimilation, lots of themes, lots of schemas, you know. And same with simultaneous, uses a lot more adaptation, like, oh, this means this, and that means that. And then the same image just pops up in your mind for like 2 different names. We've been discussing Is Bilingualism a Superpower by Storied in their series Other Words. The constructivist theory is credited to Piaget, and the social learning theory is credited to Bandouris. And a big thank you to our educational psychology class and Dr. Amy Smith. Have a wonderful night.